San Francisco, 11 p.m. In the sleek, glass-walled office of Benjamin Carter, CEO of Carter Tech, the city lights shimmered below. He loosened his tie, exhaling deeply after another grueling board meeting. He reached for his phone to call his driver, only to remember that Paul, his personal chauffeur, had taken the week off to visit family. "Guess I'm taking a cab tonight," Benjamin muttered, grabbing his briefcase and heading downstairs. The night air was crisp. He pulled his coat tighter around him and stepped to the curb, raising a hand to hail a passing yellow cab. The car pulled up smoothly and he slid into the back seat. "Ocean View Tower, please." "Sure thing." That voice... Benjamin froze. Slowly, he looked up at the driver's ID displayed on the dashboard. Jessica Collins. His heart stopped. In an instant, 25 years melted away. 1998, Stanford University. Benjamin Carter was a sophomore then, the only son of a powerful, wealthy family. Jessica Collins was the girl with the warmest smile, a brilliant mind, and a full-ride scholarship earned through sheer determination. They met in Microeconomics 101 at Benjamin, used to luxury and privilege, struggled with the class, while Jessica was the top student. The professor assigned the highest scorers to tutor those who were struggling. And just like that, Jessica became Benjamin's tutor. Study sessions in the library turned into late-night conversations about life and dreams. The girl juggling 2 jobs to pay for school and the trust fund heir living in a world of exclusive parties had nothing in common, except an unexplainable connection that neither of them could deny. That spring, Benjamin realized he was in love with Jessica. Not because she was the only one who could make economics make sense, but because she made him feel real. With her, he wasn't the heir to a billion-dollar empire. He was just a boy who dreamed. But their world was never meant to be that simple. His parents found out. Richard Carter, his father, a ruthless businessman who valued power above all, decided Jessica wasn't suitable. That summer, Benjamin was summoned home and given an ultimatum. "If you stay with her, you lose everything." Furious, Benjamin protested. "I can take care of myself," but he knew the truth. His entire life, his future, was tied to the Carter name. By fall, Jessica noticed the distance. She didn't understand why, until, one night, Benjamin met her at the library, his eyes red and his hands clenched into fists, as if he were fighting against himself. "I'm sorry, Jess, I can't do this." Jessica froze, her breath catching in her throat. "You can't, or you won't." Benjamin looked away, his jaw tight. "It doesn't matter." She stared at him for a long moment, waiting for an explanation. But when none came, she forced herself to swallow the pain and nodded stiffly. "I get it." But as she walked away, her heart shattered into pieces she wasn't sure would ever fit back together. And that was the last time they ever spoke. San Francisco, present day. The air inside the cab felt thick. Benjamin wanted to speak, but his throat tightened. 25 years apart, and now Jessica was right in front of him. Not at a corporate event, not at a high-end gala, but behind the wheel of a taxi. Jessica glanced at him through the rearview mirror, eyes widening in recognition, but she quickly composed herself. "It's just a 15-minute ride," she reminded herself, keeping her tone neutral. Benjamin finally found his voice. "Jess, is it really you?" Jessica pressed her lips together, her hands gripping the wheel. "Hey, Benjamin, long time." He let out a short laugh, but it held no humor. 25 years, to be exact. Silence stretched between them. 25 years. They once dreamed of a future together. Now they were strangers sharing a taxi ride through the streets of San Francisco. "How have you been?" Benjamin finally broke the silence. Jessica inhaled deeply. "I'm fine. Driving keeps the bills paid." "You stayed in San Francisco? How have I never run into you?" Jessica smirked slightly. "Because you live in places I have no reason to be." Benjamin started to respond, but Jessica's phone rang. She put it on speaker. "Hey, Mom, just landed. I'll call you in a bit." A young man's voice came through. Benjamin stiffened. "Mom?" Jessica nodded, keeping her eyes on the road. "Yes, my son Liam." Benjamin stared at her, the pieces falling into place. "You have a son?" Jessica met his gaze in the mirror before giving a small nod. Yes, he's 24. The cab pulled up in front of Ocean View Tower. The ride was over, but Benjamin knew their story was only beginning. The cab rolled to a stop in front of Ocean View Tower, but Benjamin didn't move. He knew he should step out, but something kept him rooted to his seat. "Jess?" he started, but Jessica cut in quickly. "Benjamin, this is just a ride. I have other passengers waiting." Her tone was firm, but there was hesitation beneath it. He smiled slightly. "Then can I be your passenger tomorrow?" Jessica frowned. "What do you mean?" "I want to see you, have coffee, talk like old friends." Jessica hesitated for a few seconds before shaking her head slowly. "We're not old friends, Benjamin. We're two people who lived in different worlds for too long. That doesn't mean I can't change." His gaze was steady. 25 years ago, I let you go without a fight. I don't want to make that mistake again." Jessica inhaled deeply, staring at the city lights. Memories crashed into her like waves. Late-night study sessions, whispered confessions, the warmth of his hand in hers. She clenched the steering wheel. This was dangerous. She had spent 25 years building walls around her heart, and now, with just a few words, Benjamin was making them crumble. "Fine," she finally said, though her voice was barely above a whisper. "1 cup of coffee, tomorrow, 3 p.m., Pine Cafe, on Market Street." Benjamin exhaled, relief washing over him. "I'll be there." He stepped out of the cab, but before closing the door, he leaned in and murmured, "Jessica, it's really good to see you again." Jessica watched him in the rearview mirror, a small, unreadable smile touching her lips before she pulled away, leaving the past behind, or maybe driving toward a new beginning. The next day, Benjamin arrived at Pine Cafe 20 minutes early. He had faced billion-dollar board meetings with more confidence than he felt right now. Jessica walked in right on time. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, but to Benjamin, she looked just as beautiful as she always had. Benjamin picked up his coffee, but didn't drink it. He just looked at Jessica, as if trying to make up for 25 lost years. "I've thought about you a lot, Jess." Jessica smiled faintly, but there was an undeniable sadness in her eyes. "Benjamin, we've lived 2 completely different lives. Nothing has changed." He shook his head. "Everything has changed. You have a son, a life I never knew about." Jessica sighed, clasping her hands together on the table. "After I left Stanford, I started law school. Then I found out I was pregnant." Benjamin straightened. "The father?" Jessica let out a dry laugh. "My boyfriend at the time. The moment he found out, he disappeared. I tried to continue school, but being a single mom at 22 wasn't easy. I had to drop out, take any job I could to support my son." Benjamin clenched his jaw. He couldn't imagine Jessica, the smartest woman he'd ever known, giving up her dreams because of some coward who ran away. "I'm sorry, Jess. I wish I had known." Jessica shook her head. "It's in the past, Benjamin. What about you? How's your life been?" He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "I got married. 10 years of a marriage that was never really about love. No kids, no connection, just 2 people in an arrangement that suited our families." Jessica studied him, sympathy in her gaze. "And then you divorced?" Benjamin nodded. "Yeah. Eventually I realized I'd spent my whole life living for other people." Before Jessica could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. "Liam," she put it on speaker. "Hey, Mom, I just got a call from Carter Tech, the engineering division. They saw my resume and want to interview me next week." Benjamin raised an eyebrow, and Jessica's eyes widened. "I had nothing to do with this," Benjamin quickly said. Jessica exhaled. "Liam, I'll call you back soon." She looked at Benjamin, her gaze unreadable. "I don't want my son thinking he got this opportunity because of you." Benjamin nodded. "I understand, but let him decide for himself. He's talented, Jess. He deserves this shot." Jessica stayed silent. She wasn't sure if she was ready to open her heart again. "I need time," she finally said. Benjamin gave a small smile. "I'll wait." A few days later, news about Benjamin Carter and a taxi driver started spreading across business papers and gossip sites. Billionaire dating a commoner? Sensational headlines were everywhere. Jessica found out when her coworker Ruby shoved a newspaper in front of her. "Girl, are you seriously involved with Benjamin Carter?" Ruby's eyes widened. "The whole city is talking about you." Jessica snatched the paper. Right on the front page was a photo of her and Benjamin at Pine Cafe with a mocking headline, "From college to the back seat, the woman who captured the CEO's heart." Heat rose to Jessica's cheeks. She had tried to keep her distance, but now things were spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, in his Carter Tech office, Benjamin faced Richard Carter, his father. "Do you even realize what you're doing?" Richard slammed his hand on the desk. "The entire business world is laughing at you." Benjamin's fists clenched. "I don't care. And what about the Westwood partnership? They won't want to be associated with you if you continue this relationship." Benjamin stared his father down. "If they judge me based on my personal life, maybe I shouldn't be doing business with them." Richard gritted his teeth. "Don't be foolish, Benjamin. This ends now." Benjamin clenched his jaw, but this time he wasn't backing down. That night, Jessica sat on her small couch, scrolling through hundreds of cruel comments online. She's obviously after his money. A taxi driver trying to climb into high society? She's not good enough for Benjamin Carter. Her phone buzzed. "Benjamin." She didn't answer. But minutes later, there was a knock at the door. When Jessica opened it, Benjamin stood there, tired but determined. "I'm not letting you run away again." His voice was low, steady. Jessica crossed her arms. "Benjamin, I can't let my life be torn apart by public scrutiny." "Then let me stand in it with you." He stepped inside, meeting her gaze. "I lost you once for 25 years, and I will not lose you again." Jessica swallowed hard. How much longer could she deny this? The next day, Benjamin held a press conference. Before a room full of reporters, he stated boldly, "I lost Jessica Collins for 25 years, and I will not lose her again." Jessica watched the live stream on her phone, tears slipping down her cheeks. Maybe this love was worth risking everything for. The next morning, while Benjamin was in his office, his secretary walked in. "Mr. Carter, there's a young man here to see you. His name is Liam Collins." Benjamin immediately straightened. Liam. He had hoped for the chance to meet Jessica's son, but he hadn't expected Liam to come to him first. A few minutes later, the door opened and Liam walked in, tall, confident, but with wary eyes. "Thank you for seeing me," Liam said, his voice steady. "I want to talk about my mother." Benjamin nodded. "I'm listening." Liam crossed his arms, looking Benjamin dead in the eye. Liam sat across from Benjamin, his expression unreadable. He was calm, too calm. "I don't know what your intentions are," he began, his voice steady but firm. "But my mother is not some business deal you can negotiate. She is not a second chance you can take just because you regret your past." Benjamin exhaled, feeling the weight of Liam's words. "You're right, she's not a deal, and she's not an option. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was a fool to let her go." He took a deep breath. "Liam, I loved your mother 25 years ago, and I never stopped loving her. But I let her go without fighting for her. That was the biggest mistake of my life." Liam studied Benjamin, his sharp eyes no longer filled with hostility. Benjamin continued, "I don't care about the media. I don't care what society thinks. The only thing that matters to me is making your mother happy, if she'll give me the chance." Liam stared at him for a long moment before he unexpectedly smirked. "You're serious about this?" Benjamin nodded. "Completely." Liam sighed, then extended his hand. "Then prove it. Don't give up." Benjamin shook his hand, a silent understanding passing between them. "I won't." And for the first time, Benjamin felt like he truly had a chance to make things right. After meeting Liam, Benjamin was more determined than ever. This time, he wouldn't give up. He didn't intrude on Jessica's life, but he found small ways to be near her. He started frequenting the cafe where she often stopped after her shifts, leaving books he remembered she loved, or simply sitting there, waiting for her to make the first move. He didn't pressure her for an answer. He let her decide for herself. But his family wasn't about to let this happen without a fight. One evening, Richard Carter came to see him. "Benjamin, You're destroying your reputation. A man like you cannot end up with a taxi driver." Benjamin met his father's gaze. "I've spent half my life living the way you wanted. This time, I'm choosing my own happiness." "She doesn't belong in your world," Richard said coldly. Benjamin chuckled. "No, she doesn't belong here, but maybe this world never deserved her in the first place." After months of patience and persistence, Jessica still hesitated. One evening, Liam sat beside his mother on the couch, his expression thoughtful. "You still love him, don't you?" Jessica gripped her cup of tea, silent. Liam sighed. "You've spent your whole life sacrificing for me, but I don't want you to live with regrets." Jessica looked at her son, emotion filling her chest. "You deserve to be happy, Mom." Liam squeezed her hand. "I know you're scared, but some chances aren't meant to be wasted." Jessica swallowed the lump in her throat. One night, as she sat in her usual cafe after work, Benjamin quietly placed a steaming cup of tea in front of her. "I know you like tea on exhausting days," he said softly. Jessica picked up the cup, but didn't drink. She looked at him for a long moment before finally saying, "You've proven your point," she sighed. "I've been afraid for too long, but I don't want to live in regret anymore." Benjamin held his breath. "So, you're giving me a chance?" Jessica smiled. "Yes. But if you ever hurt me again, I will personally run you over with my cab." Benjamin laughed, pulling her into his arms. 1 year later, under the starry San Francisco sky, at an intimate gathering of loved ones, Benjamin knelt before Jessica. Benjamin took a deep breath, dropping to one knee in front of her. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. "I lost you once, and I've spent every day since regretting it. But today, I don't want to talk about regrets. I want to talk about forever. Jessica Collins, will you marry me?" Jessica covered her mouth, her heart pounding. She had spent 25 years running, hiding, protecting herself from this exact moment. Then, from the side, Liam's voice broke the silence, soft but filled with certainty. "Give yourself a chance, Mom." A tear slid down Jessica's cheek as she exhaled shakily. Then she smiled, the same warm smile that Benjamin had fallen in love with all those years ago. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, Benjamin, I will." And just like that, a new family was born, not out of fate, but because love and persistence had conquered everything.